We have our own ideas about how to sustain learning, how to make sure that whatever learning you're putting out for your organizations is something that sticks with people and allows them to continue to grow. But we also know that many of you in your organizations have your own ideas about how to keep learning a constant process for people and how to make it stick for your professionals. So we're going to just share a couple thoughts from different people in the room. And so I'm going to ask my colleague, Christine Healy de Casanova, to start. And Christine, why don't you introduce to us who you're speaking with?
Thank you, Jay. Ellen.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So as Christine said, we are training our top experienced salespeople to be extraordinary presenters in an educational workshop setting so they can really connect with their audience. And these people come in having been presenting for 10, 20 years, and they think they're pretty good. And so we're putting them through a training program where they have to really relearn everything they're doing because most of them aren't as good as they think. And so we've done a few things with ExecComm that I think has really helped to break the barrier and to sustain the learning. So one is just part of the program is videotaping and individual coaching, and that's extraordinarily helpful. I think, as all of you know, when they see themselves on videotape, they know that what feels really uncomfortable on the inside looks really good on the outside, and so it's reinforcing in that way. And then the individual coaching sessions really help them understand what they need to do. The other thing that we've done with the training itself is we've really partnered with Christine and her team to customize it to our situation. So when they're learning presentation skills, they're applying it directly to the workshop they're going to be presenting when they leave the classroom. And so that's very helpful for them. And then once they leave, there are two things that we do. One is we try to get them to have a workshop to deliver immediately, because immediacy is really key to keep that comfort with what they've learned while they're there. And the second thing is we try to do surround sound. So we want everyone around them to know that what they should be doing so they can coach them and give them feedback. And part of our relationship with Christine is she's also offered to be available to help coach them over the phone if they feel like they're stumbling and running into a problem. So that's what we've done. And Jay, I want to compliment you on your hand gestures. I think you do an excellent
job. Thank you so much, Ellen. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dory Melman. Dory?
Thank you, Christine. And I'm delighted to introduce you all to Andrew Wise, who is the Vice President of Organizational Development for Visiting Nurse Service of New York. We have had the pleasure of working with his organization for a number of years. And every time I meet anyone, as you can imagine, from Visiting Nurse Service of New York, it's just, they're lovely people and a delight to work with. So, Andrew, I would like to turn this over to you and ask you, what do you believe is the most important tool in sustaining learning?
So, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. And thank you, Dory, for that wonderful introduction. We really so much enjoy working with all of you. ExecComm is a fantastic firm, so thank you. So when I was thinking about the most important tool that in our organization helps sustain learning, I actually came up with the thought of our partnership pact. And what I mean by that is really the relationship between not only our organizational development professionals, but also the managers and leaders in the organization and the employees, to make sure that it's very clear expectation is set for everybody as far as what is their role in sustaining learning and development for our employee population. And we do that through a few different things, either if it's a 360 or a high potential program or even a one-day course, making sure that everyone understands what are they going there to learn, what are the main things they're going to take away, and then giving tools to our leaders to make sure they can help the employee translate that back to their day-to-day work, and also understand how to find opportunities for the people to continue to practice, and then driving them to keep checking in. What did you learn? What worked? What didn't work? And continuing those conversations throughout the year, either in performance management or even more informally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And now I'd like to hand it over to my colleague and friend, Amy Staub.
Thanks, Dory. Is this thing on? Oh, it is. Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Staub. Thanks, Dory. And I have with me here Judy Schwartz. Judy is from Yahoo, and she is the Director of Sales, Learning, and Development. And we would love to know, from your perspective, Judy, what is the top trend in learning sustainability?
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everybody, and happy Thursday again. I actually polled a couple of people at Yahoo in my organization. The team that I'm on is in charge of sales, learning, and development, as Amy said. We've got an organization of about 1,000 people over which we check into what they need and provide it. Now, one of the things that we've been doing and a couple of the trends that we've been seeing have to do with learning at the time of need. And that's not brain surgery, and if you've been in L&D for any length of time, you know that whether it's sort of a card that you wear around your neck or, it's having it when you need it. And that has everything to do with whether it's performance support in the way we're working currently with Ontuitive to create performance support tools online that are embedded into our sales systems. In addition to that, we are very, very focused on coaching and reinforcement. So, as Amy will attest to, I'm a hammer when it comes to speaking to any of the partners we work with, that it doesn't end when the training program ends. It ends never, essentially. Sorry, Amy. And a big part of what we need to do is to ensure that our learners are being reinforced immediately post-training and for months later. But probably the most important trend that we've seen that I think is super critical is that it's really got to be learner-led. The more that learners are engaged in selecting their own curriculum, the more engaged they are, the more active they'll be in their learning, and the more that learning's going to stick, right? That's sort of obvious, right? When you're, as my kid said to me, she's doing a term paper on something, and she's like, I don't even remember what I wrote, and I wrote it yesterday. She's not interested, she's not going to remember it. And as adults, the trend continues, and our brains are full of more stuff than your average 12-year-old. So clearly, that's not such a bad idea, right? The three trends, what did I say? Three. It's got to be learner-led. It's got to be learning at the time of need, whether that's performance support embedded or coaching and manager reinforced.
I'm going to introduce it now to Diane McCulloch.
All right, and I'm going to finish up this segment. Good morning, my name is Diane McCulloch. I'd like to introduce Steve Marcus. Steve, I invite you to stand for us. Steve is the Vice President of Learning and Development with the Seagull Company. And I'd like to finish up this segment, Steve, by asking you, in your opinion, what do you think is the most critical element that's necessary for success when we think about learning sustainability?
Okay. Thanks, Diane, and good morning, everyone. Obviously, just listening to the three people before me, there's several different factors, and all of them important, and a lot of them really what I'll call external to the individual. So let me look internal to the individual. So let's assume that they've learned whatever we're trying to teach them or help them understand. Ultimately, to get the transfer for them to change their behavior, we believe that ultimately they have to have the strong desire and the commitment to make the change, right? Very basic. But sometimes we see that it doesn't happen. There's lots of obstacles and challenges once they get back to their desk or the floor of the plant or whatever the job is that gets in the way and that derails the change. So the other thing I think is particularly important is really a discipline for the person to try the new behavior and stick with it, because oftentimes it's going to take you a while to master it or even be acceptable in terms of the behavior. And how that manifests itself individually to reinforce the behavior and remind yourself. Some people will use action plans, put notes on their calendar, whatever works for them, but there has to be a discipline that will help them follow through on their commitment to ultimately sustain the learning. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Steve. And Jay, back to you.